Hey guys, welcome to the final module of the 7-Day Startup program. In this module, we're going to be talking about launching and then what happens after you launch. So launch day and beyond. This is a really nice quote from Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. And that sets the scene for the message of this module, which is one of the shortest modules, one of the shortest chapters in the book is the one about launch, because to me, the whole goal of the 7-Day Startup is to get to launch, but the actual launch day is not massive. It's just another day. If it takes 1,000 days to build a business, then day one is the launch, and then the other 999 when the real work begins. So it's important to get to launch, but don't try to have a massive launch for something like this. Try to think about it more as a slow build, and over time you're going to build monthly recurring value. So having said that, there's a bunch of things that you can do. It's totally up to you what to do on launch day. Here's some stuff that I've tried. So obviously put up your website with your PayPal button or your Stripe button, depending on what you're using there. Make yourself available. I try to make myself available via live chat on my site or really easily contactable on social media. Make sure that if customers want to chat with you, then they're able to do that. And I find live chat really good for that. Being really active on social media and the comments is really good for that as well. Have a pre-launch list, which are things that you want to do when you launch, and you can use this as a starting point, all the tasks I've got on here, but there might be other things that are suitable for the type of business you're working on, and work through those. Update your social networks, obviously, with your launch plans, and you can do social media images. These days, that's probably a good way to go. Do like a nice square image for Instagram, and an image that'll fit perfectly on a tweet. You can just Google those sizes to work out the size for those images. Do something nice. You can use something like Canva or Photoshop, or the other thing I do is use an app called WordSwag, which is a mobile app that you can use for quotes. So if you've got quotes or something relevant for your launch, you can do that. But the important thing is just to update, make sure people know what you're doing. Forums, if you participate in any of those. WP Curve was launched inside the Dynamite Circle forum, which is one I'm a member of. A 7-Day Startup community would be an example. There's people launching businesses in there all the time, and the other people get behind them and upvote them on Product Hunt, and share the launch and that kind of stuff. So that's a really valuable thing to do on launch day. Obviously, tell people. Press I've talked about a little bit, but if you can work up to some kind of press on launch day, it's always a good thing to do. But don't build something for months and then just to get some press about it. But if you can get some press on launch day, it's always a nice bonus. So obviously thank anyone who's been involved in the last week. If people have helped you, especially when people run these 7-Day Startups in our community, make sure you thank the members of the community for helping you, supporting you for the last week, and the other people in your community for helping you with the launch and sharing your launch, and just be grateful that you're now live. Obviously reach out to influencers if you feel like you're in a position to do that. If you're literally starting from scratch, I wouldn't be going and emailing big name influencers and asking them to share your launch. But if you've built up a bit of a relationship with them, then this is the time to tap into that if you feel like it's reasonable to do that. So write a blog post. Obviously, content is one of my favorite things, and if I'm ever doing anything, you'll be sure that there'll be a blog post about it. So revisit your marketing plan is an important thing to do. In the module about 10 ways to market your business, start implementing that kind of stuff. So once you've launched, start thinking about how you're going to implement those marketing ideas, and then just really pay attention to what's working. So the other thing is let me know, because I love hearing when people launch these businesses, and tweet me at the Dan Norris, or I'm on Periscope and Instagram, and also on Facebook. Let me know that you've used the 7-Day Startup process by using hashtag 7-Day Startup, and I always monitor those, and I love to share them if they look like pretty well executed businesses. I'll always share them if I can to get you guys a little bit of extra attention. And of course, just relax. It's just another day, and it's very, very rare for a business to be built on the back of a one-day launch. It's just like a long-term, sustainable, solid startup doesn't really happen that way. It's especially for self-funded startups. They normally just get into that momentum a couple of months after launch, and they just keep building from there. So just relax. If it's not the biggest launch of your expectations, then that's fine. The real work begins tomorrow, and once you start executing that marketing plan to try and build some monthly value. So I didn't want to end the idea of the 7-Day Startup on the launch day, because I think there's an overall way to think about running a business that is underlying in the idea of the 7-Day Startup that's worth addressing. And these are some of the things I've learnt over 8 or 9 years of entrepreneurship, a lot of those years being unsuccessful and learning from mistakes, but also a couple of years have been quite successful and learning from things that have gone well. So the first one is to test every assumption. I think a lot of people take what other people say and run with it because that person's more successful. They really look up to them and take that advice. I think that's a bad thing to do. I think no matter what the advice, no matter who's giving the advice, you need to test it for yourself. And whatever assumption you're making about your launch, about your customers, about your business, anything, then you need to test it by actually implementing something and getting real data. So obviously that's the whole point of the 7-day startup. Whatever you're assuming before you launch is not going to be right. So just launch and then start to look at what's happening. But test every assumption is a way of thinking, and it's a way of questioning everything and learning to say no to things and learning to take the advice that is relevant for you and that works for you, and not hero worshipping people who you think because they have more success that they know everything. So that's a really core message in everything I do. I think because it works for someone else, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You need to test everything for yourself. So solve problems as they arise. A rookie mistake in entrepreneurship is premature optimization, which is absolutely perfecting everything. You know, if you're running a website, you get the best server, you spend thousands and thousands on a website and a theme, and you hire copywriters and designers, and it ends up being this massive thing. And then 3 weeks later, you realize the business model isn't sound and you have to start again. So this is, in every decision you make, you need to ask yourself, is this a problem I have now? And if not, is it something I can solve when I do have that problem? And the vast majority of the time, whatever problem you're going to have in business, even if you can predict it ahead of time, it's better to solve it when you have it. And I know this is maybe a little bit controversial because people, say to plan things and make sure you don't get into trouble and whatnot. But this is something that served me very well. Just being cognizant of what problems you might come up against in the future, but don't solve them until they arise. And instead, focus on whatever problems you have right now. And if you've just launched a business, the only problem you probably have is that you don't have enough customers. So if you're spending a lot of time on doing something that isn't getting you more customers, then you're probably solving problems that haven't arisen yet. So do what you say you will do. It's really hard to give an entrepreneur advice on how to run a better business when they say they'll do one thing and then they just do another, or they just don't do what they said they would do. Like, it's just a core thing in human nature where you just need to do what you commit to doing. And this is really important in business because no one's going to pay you if they think that you're not going to give them what you say you're going to give them. So it could be a tiniest little thing. It could be showing up to podcast interviews or replying to emails. It could be anything. But if you're not in the habit of doing what you say you're doing, you will do, then this is a bad sign for entrepreneurship. So be true to your word and make sure if you commit to something, then you do execute on it, no matter what that is. So benchmark against the best. I think copying people is a really bad idea. And that's why I don't worry when people copy our business model, partly because I'm sort of encouraging people to in a way through all this content. But at the same time, I think individuals have to test things for themselves. Because it worked for me, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. The 7-day startup is about launching a business. It's not about building $1 million business guaranteed in a week. It's about getting to launch. And whether you succeed or fail, that is not the point of the 7-day startup. The point is that you get to that outcome as quickly as possible, whether it's success or failure. So at the same time, I think you need to benchmark off the best. And this is something I've always done. I haven't compared my website to my friends' websites, or I haven't compared my business or my hiring processes or the technology I use to my local community. I've compared it to the best. If I want to build a website, I want to look at the best in the world, and I want to do my absolute best to create something that's as good as them. If I'm running a service, I want to offer a better service than the best in the world can offer. And this is a challenging thing, and it ultimately puts you in a position where you rarely meet your expectations fully because you really are trying to be the best in the world at something. But that attitude is going to get you much better results than if you have an attitude of, well, that's good enough. And obviously there's got to be some kind of balance, because if you're going to launch something in a week, then there has to be some amount of that's good enough. But ultimately, I think it's much better long-term to just have a mindset that is, just because I don't have the resources that the other funded companies have, it doesn't mean I can't create something as good or very, very close to as good as they can. So benchmark off the best in everything you do, and that will elevate your performance to a new level. Learn from others and yourself. Obviously, it's important to learn from others. I think it's probably more important to learn for yourself. Just because it works for one person, it doesn't mean it'll work for you. So pay attention to what's working for you, but also look elsewhere and get a feel for what's working for other people, as long as you bring it back and test it for yourself and implement what is true to you and what works for you. Outlearn your competition. And this is an important one. It's with building a business, it is really about figuring things out and doing it as fast as you can. And I think it's part of the reason why I don't worry too much about competitors, because I think if you can move really quickly and you can get a head start and learn faster than other people, then it doesn't really matter if people copying you, because they'll always be behind you. So you need to get fast at learning and you need to outlearn your competition. Of course, consider how your business looks without you. I've talked about that a lot in this course. It doesn't mean you have to leave, but it does mean you have to look at what happens if you did leave and look at how your business looks. And if it doesn't look, and be honest with yourself, if it doesn't look good, there are things you can do to make sure that the style of marketing you do, that the service you offer, the promises you make in terms of your own personal involvement are not quite the same as you might be offering now. And this is really important because, okay, maybe you don't plan on leaving your business, but it's absolutely guaranteed. It's like buying a house. At some stage, you are going to leave your house. At some stage, you are going to leave your business. And you want to leave it as a good business, not as something that relies totally on you, or else nobody will ever buy it. So think about how it looks without you, and think about financially what it looks like. And if it's looking like it's not going to run too well without you, then see if you can tweak some things to fix that balance. Hopefully, if you did the ideas section properly in this course, then you would have considered this stuff already, but always think about how it looks without you. Look for momentum. So the whole message in this is to launch quickly and then just see if you can get to that point of momentum. And this is so powerful. The growth section, I talked about that with the targets. If you can grow at 15% a month from $6,000 a month, in 2 years, you're a $2 million business. And that's what momentum achieves. And momentum presents itself in a whole bunch of different forms in business. I've seen it with brand new blogs that we've got. I've seen it with brands that we've started. I've seen it with website traffic and email conversions and monthly recurring revenue. If you can get to that sweet spot where it just naturally just starts to build, it's a very, very easy thing to keep going. Much, much easier than starting something from scratch. So you need to really look for traction and look for signs of that and do more of that to keep that momentum going. Managing motivation is critical for every entrepreneur. So whatever that means to you, you need to do that, whether it's taking time off or relaxing or just being grateful, realizing what you've got, spending more time with your family or away from work, or maybe it is working more. If this is like really driving you right now, then maybe allow yourself to really put 100% into it for a short amount of time to get what you want. Whatever it is for you, I don't want to prescribe the way you need to live your life, but you need to manage motivation. If you're not driven, if you're not motivated, you've got absolutely no chance. And this co-founders come into this as well, and your idea comes into this, like the idea of enjoyable daily tasks. If you chose an idea that has you working on things you don't enjoy, then your motivation is going to suffer. If you're not succeeding, not making as much money as you want, your motivation is going to suffer. So it's a constant thing with entrepreneurs. There's nothing that kills a business like an unmotivated founder. So cull difficult customers. This is something I learned in my agency. It's a very difficult thing to do sometimes, and I've been in a position where I've had to cull a customer that was providing 20% of our revenue, and it really hurt. It's not like I ditched them and found other customers. It really did hurt. But this is your business. It's your life. You don't want to be dealing with difficult people. So that's just an absolute black and white thing. You don't want to be dealing with difficult people. Get rid of the bad customers. Focus on retention. So once you do launch, it's easy to get carried away with the big launch and the monthly recurring growth and everything's going really well. But how well are you executing for your customers on an ongoing basis, and how many of them are sticking around? The amount of them that are sticking around will give you an idea of how great the service is, and also how much of a problem it serves for them on an ongoing basis. And this is particularly important if you're building a recurring business. Some ideas are just not recurring in nature, and you need to do a lot more to make sure the customers stick around. Some of them, people will naturally stick around unless you're doing a really bad job. So you need to think about your business, where it fits on that spectrum, and how happy your customers are ongoing, how much they're hanging around, telling other people, and you're retaining those customers. And that becomes a really useful metric down the track after you've launched and you're up and running and you got that momentum. So of course, avoid short-term thinking. No business is built quickly. And if you have to choose between a short-term thing and a long-term thing, you need to think long-term. And it could be it could be, it could be your web hosting, it could be the content you're putting out, it could be the press you're doing, it could be your design. Once you get up and running and you do have a real business, that's the time to invest in this stuff and think long term. The successful startups don't have a problem with thinking long term. They'll do things that don't give them immediate ROI. So content marketing often won't give you immediate ROI. Getting a lot of press will often not give you an immediate ROI. Doing like lots of podcast interviews like I do, it'd be very rare for someone to listen to a podcast and come straight to my site and sign up. But after years of doing it, I've got hundreds and hundreds of links, and thousands of people, hundreds of thousands have heard about me and have heard about WP Curve and my other businesses. So this is like a long-term way of thinking that if you think it's going to take you 3 years to build a business, then don't expect immediate ROI on absolutely everything you do. Now focus on product. If it's a service you're offering, then focus on service. The word product encapsulates all of it for me. The quality of what you're doing, the product and the service. If you're in doubt about what to do, like should you go to network meetings with entrepreneurs, should you focus on marketing, should you improve the service or product, then you always should fall back on improving the service or product. This is particularly true after you've launched and you've got that momentum and you know it's a good idea and things are going well. Then you need to just focus on that product and not get too distracted with all the other things that come along as an entrepreneur. And obviously love your work. It's really, there's no point in doing this entrepreneurship thing unless you love what you're doing. It's not easy. It quite often will involve you working a lot more hours, at least initially, for a lot less money. And the rosy aspects of entrepreneurship are often touted by press outlets, but the challenges and the struggles of entrepreneurship often aren't. So you need to be realistic about that. And if you're not loving every day of your work as an entrepreneur, then I think you're probably going about it wrong. So you need to think about how much you're loving life when you're working as an entrepreneur, not just, when you've got the money to do what you love. You need to be doing what you love all day, every day. And one thing I say in the book is it is a problem if you're more excited about Friday than you are about Monday when you're an entrepreneur. That's normal if you work for the corporate world. But as an entrepreneur, I'm more excited on Monday morning because I love what I'm doing. And I know I've got that full week of endless possibilities. So love your work and stay motivated. So that's the end of the 7-Day Startup course. There's a lot that goes into creating a good business, and the 7-Day Startup community at 7daystartup.co is where we hold all of the resources for the other startups and the frameworks we use and all of the conversations and the network of entrepreneurs that enable people to have that support when they launch a business like this. So please check that out. And I really wish you all the best with launching your startup, and I hope this has been useful for you. Thank you so much. Remember to shout out to me on social media if you do launch a startup in this way. I'd love to hear from you. Thousands of people have done this, and some really successful startups have been launched this way, which makes me really happy, more happy than anything else out of creating this whole idea. So thank you so much. I hope this has been useful, and look forward to seeing your startup.